welcome to Paul Rudy.
Before we get started, I have to apologize. First of all, thank you for this gracious. What a great venue, huh? Jeez, I'd meet every day if I were you all. This is breathtaking. But, you know, it shows you my manners. I get invited to this fine gathering, and I invite somebody. Could you please, a warm PPR round of applause for the Dean of PPR Shooters, Mr. Tim Gaughan, everybody. Tim and I have been working together off and on for how many years?
I don't know.
A long time. We have yelled at one another. We have laughed. We've had some great memories. And Tim has as much to do with the success of our high school football show as yours truly. So he's a dear friend, and I was up in his neck of the woods. We have to discuss a little PPR business after this, and so he graciously came. He's also my documentarian, as you can see. I'll keep this short. I don't want to prattle on. Plus, I've been up since 4 in the morning, and I'm going to fade on you and fade. So let me just tell you the story. I've told it at other gatherings similar to this. It was, I don't know, I must have been 10, 11 years old, and I was at a high school football game in Madison, Wisconsin. It was Madison East taking on Madison La Follette in what was the Big 8 title game. And my father was a volunteer for the game, and I can remember being dragged around like this as he would take me to these games. And by the time I was 11 or 12 years old, we didn't even have to hold hands. And I was on the sidelines with him, working the chains or something. And it was a dramatic game, and the Lancers of La Follette lose on just a fluke play, and they lose the Big 8 title that they thought they had won. And I remember going into their locker room as we were putting away gear, and I remember the head coach, his name was Otto Breitenbach. And I'm new to this, and I'm seeing grown men crying. Well, they weren't grown men, they were high school kids, but to me, they were grown men crying. And I remember Breitenbach walking in. He was just, a square-jawed guy, and he was tough as nails. He goes, "Everybody stop crying! Shut off the waterworks!" And he gave this speech that now is a half-century old, but I remember it to this day. He goes, "You're going to be a gentleman first, you'll be a student second, and you'll be an athlete third." And that has stuck with me for a long time. Now let's review the process. Let's do it in reverse order. Be an athlete third. My senior year against Madison West in our homecoming game, I fumbled 3 times, snatching defeat from victory's hands. I can remember my mom heckling me from the stand. I can remember Krista McCarthy going off with somebody else. She was my date. And I remember the other team trying to carry me off on their shoulders. So I didn't make it as an athlete. Okay, so number 2, be a student. I went to a Catholic school, and you had to pass, in your senior year, you had to pass a Christian service project. And it could do anything. And you could be taking out the garbage for your grandma, it could be shoveling the sidewalk for your aunt. I had this elaborate plan. I was going to deliver mobile meals to the elderly. Great. Blew everybody else out of the water. It was such a good plan that the teacher was giving me his card to deliver these meals during school. Well, the problem was we never quite got to it. We would go down to the park and drink beer. But now the project is due, and I have to come up with something. So I went to a senior citizen facility, and I snapped pictures of people eating meals. And then I went to another one and snapped more. And then I set up 2 projectors, and I got the Beatles soundtrack. All the lonely people. It was great! I was getting an A in the course. Unfortunately, little Ricky Chris, to this day, if I ever see this subject, he was getting a B, and he ratted me out. He goes, at least I'm doing my project. Paul's not even doing his. One call to my alleged supervisor, and now this is like 2 weeks before graduation, and suddenly my A has gone to an F, and I'm getting these notes from the principal saying, "Please come see us." And I know what's up, because you can. And I figure if I can just avoid them, I'll get out of the school. my mother, it was such a blessed event that she had invited every living relative in a 500-mile radius to attend graduation. And I remember it was like my third to last day in school, and I'm walking out of class, and I'm looking over, and the teacher just, back then you could manhandle kids. And I remember getting dragged into a broom closet, and there was a wet broom hanging on the wall, and the teacher was throwing me up against the wall saying, "You make a fool out of me." And every time he did that, the broom was hitting me in the face. Needless to say, I got booted. This is right. My chair is going to be empty. I'm graduating. God bless Sister Alphonsine. She was a 90-pound nun who was my guidance counselor. And again, speaking of moments you remember, 98 pounds, and she knows what this F is going to mean. And she pulls me in, and she is just jittery, like I sent her over the edge. And this moment in 1978 will stick with me forever, because she had a speech impediment. And some things just stick with you. She said, "Mister, I've known some fuck-ups in my day, but you take the cake." Now that was a little bit of a call to Jesus, because when you can get a nun to drop an F-bomb in a guidance sense, you know maybe it's time to. So as a student, I was a colossal failure. But as a gentleman, I'd like to think, I'll wrap this up. I'd like to think on a good day, at least I'm trying. My dad he played. Does anyone know the name Alan Amici in this group? Alan Amici played in the greatest NFL game. Was a Heisman Trophy winner. Played for the Baltimore Colts, but he also played on the 1950 and 51 Kenosha Red Devils. They were considered, still to this day, the greatest high school football team the state of Wisconsin has ever produced. Alan Amici was the fullback and was the big star. He went on to play for Wisconsin, played on for Baltimore. But in the backfield, right next to him, in fact, what would be considered in modern day football the featured halfback, was a guy by the name of Ron Rudy. And Ron Rudy was they called him a dipsy-do ghost to the back. My dad averaged like 10 yards a carry. He went to Marquette on an athletic scholarship. He played with Alan Amici. He goes, in his private moments when he would have a martini, he would say, the reason why Alan Amici got all those yards is because they were keying on me. which was hysterical on face value, but he's sure answer. My dad had scrapbooks like the Encyclopedia Britannica, the big encyclopedias. In fact, I digress, but I can remember growing up in Wisconsin, you're in Tornado Alley. And I can remember one of those days where we're down in the cellar and we're against the southeastern wall, and we're all, man, if you've never experienced a tornado, they're flat out scary. Yeah. You think, just like Dorothy, you think you're gonna, and I can remember the lights off and the windows shaking and the dog whining, and we're all huddled together, and suddenly my dad is missing. He had gone upstairs. Like, what could he possibly, what is of such great value? And he comes down the stairs with 4 scrapbooks of his high school career. Not the family pictures, not the gold bullion. So anyhow, my dad was a great guy. And when the little kids in the neighborhood, we'd all get together, and he would have us run plays from his high school days. And one play that, I'm just talking about memories that stick with me, was the 46 Crossfire. I gave a link to Andy. He can share it with you because it tells the story better than I'm going to babble it out right now. But anyhow, it was this elaborate play where you fake to the fullback, fake to the other back, and it was this misdirection play. And every time Kenosha ran it, they would score or they have a big game. My dad was he averaged 10 yards per carry every time they ran the 46 Crossfire. And I bring that up because my dad's love of high school football, I didn't know it at that time, but it was imprinting to me because in essence, I think it was what brought the high school football show around. I think he was the inspiration that I didn't realize it until much later in life. And I was at an auction at Santana High School in early 2007 or something, and they had this auction item, you draw the play. And the coach's mother won the auction item, but she didn't know what to do with it, so she gave it to me and she said, Paul, I'd like you to draw the play. And I'm an X and O's guy, and I like all the elaborate stuff that's going on in the game today, but I thought as a tribute to the old man, I would teach him a 1951 high school football play called the 46 Crossfire. And I got to go to practice, put the whistle on, wear the shirt, and I was grabbing kids by the face mask just like, the olden days. And I showed them how to line up. We ran the play and practiced it for 45 minutes. A formation that they haven't seen in 2-3 decades in modern day football. But the kids learned the 40s, and they could not have been cooler. They practiced hard, they listened, we walked through the block. And then I left the practice, and they were going to run it the next home game. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, I showed him the 46 Crossfire. Now, time difference, back then the show was on at 11 o'clock, and I told them they're going to run it next week at the homecoming game at Santana. Now, stay up if you want. And Santana ran that play. They scored twice. They ran it twice, and I got off the air at midnight. I called my dad. Now I figured I'd leave a message. He picked up on the first ring. And I said, Pop, they scored 28 yards and they scored 11 yards. He squealed like a little girl. It was the greatest father-son moment from 2,000 miles. 4 months later, my old man dies. He dies with a martini in his hand watching Bill O'Reilly on Fox. The paramedics come. The martini the olive was still spinning. It was $1 million death. God let us all go that way. All right? Either that or a knife fight in a brothel, but in a dispute over the bill. I've been up since 4. All right. But anyhow, so I had to go back to my homestead, and my mom, who is distraught, as you all imagine, asked me to clear out his office. And part of it was, packing up his computer, this, that, and the other thing. And I went and I checked out his computer history just to see what, my dad was a World War II buff, and he would have great admiration and respect for you, sir. So you would have liked him. But I went on his computer history, and damn, if think of how embarrassing it could have been. Instead, he must have watched because I did a story on the 46 Crossfire. I did what you have seen. So please share it with everybody, because this story will come together a lot better than I can babble it out. But it was a 90-second story, how I blah blah blah, what I've just babbled to you. He must have watched that every day he must have watched it 5 times a day. It was on there 5. I started bawling like a baby. And that's what makes the Prep Pigskin Report so damn special. It's not about the great players, which we've had. It's not about the great friendships like I've had with this guy and can repeat on, what do we have, 100 people working on the damn show? It's not about that. It's about the memories created. We have become a memory archive for hundreds and hundreds of kids and their parents, so that, because let's face it, we're only fast and good looking for such a short period of time. I have to take roll call now when I'm in the shower. I don't even know the image staring back at me. Toes, can you hear me? Because I can't see you anymore. So I think that is what the that's what the PPR is all about, and we're in the memory business, and we create memories for all these kids, and I think that's why I love the show. Tim and I'm going to tell you right now, no one's getting rich on working on our show. It's a labor of love, and it's a passion play. And the fact that you all would sit and listen to me babble about it speaks to maybe there's some interest in it. It's become this thing that it's like, try to get the genie back in the bottle. It's now become a social media thing. And, I have kids that, all I did was kind of come up with the idea of the show. They treat me like, hey, dude, come on, get out of the way. I'll show you how to do the social media thing. And everyone's putting their little mark on it. And I've learned if you plagiarize enough ideas, put them into the blender, hit the spin button, what comes out is uniquely original. And you get to come to great gatherings like this and talk about it. So that is the history of the PPR. I thank you for Is that the story you wanted to hear? Yes, talk to me, come on.
I gotta ask, all these decades, we've had such incredible athletes come out of San Diego County. Who are the ones in high school that you impressed you the most and you knew they were going to?
Everyone's going to think Reggie Bush, who, by the way, Wednesday is going to be inducted into the Breitbart Hall of Fame, and hopefully we get to chat with him. And that's the obvious choice, but it's really not Reggie. The kid that I thought, whoa, this was a little tiny kid from modern day, what was it? What was modern day then? It was before modern day, they were Marian Catholic. Kid by the name of P.T. Gates. He was tough as nails. He was about 5'9". He was just as fast as Reggie, played both ways, and he was head and shoulders always the best kid on the football field when he was ever out there. And I thought, it just shows you how good a prognosticator I am. I thought that kid's going to the NFL. But what you can never measure is what's going to happen to how young people deal with fame and who gets into their orbit and who they listen to and who they run with. Reggie always had good adults around him, and he took the path of hard work and practice. P.T. Gates got off the beaten path, and it just petered out for him. But for that year in high school football, P.T. Gates, pound per pound, was the best kid I ever saw. Yes?
You have a lot of kids that work the PPR, and you've given apparently a lot of kids an opportunity to break into broadcasting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
To this day, my greatest achievement, I am not the gift. Come on, the video doesn't lie. You all see me. I am not the most gifted. I certainly am not the slenderest. I'm not the skinniest anchor you'll ever see. I remember one media critic said, "How does he do the news or sports with a hook in his mouth?" Referring to when I was a baby and when the doctor pulled me out, the forceps got a nerve in my face, so I always talk like this. And so I'm not the. Well, it's a long way of saying I am not the most gifted anchor. But the one thing I will put up against anybody in this room, anybody in this county, anybody who's watching, the thing I do as well as anybody and better than most is I hire well. I have picked, we had a kid by the name of Travis Berger. Came in, Travis was pale as a ghost. He was from Iowa. For his interview, he was shaking. He was so nervous. And he had one brown sock on and one green sock on. And he sat down. It was the worst interview presentation. I honestly thought I was going to have to call the paramedics. I thought he was an experiment. But there was something about the kid. I said, you know what? We're going to give him a shot. And now, to this day, now, in the first couple of years, it was messy. But it got better. And it got better. And last year, he finished in the top 10 of our shooters category, which is, this guy, you don't understand, you're in the presence of greatness. This guy can shoot video, like he can paint a picture with his hands and his eyes. To be in the group of elite shooters with Tim, for Travis to just be in the same conversation as Tim is significant. And what he was able to do in 15, 14 years with the show, he's now as an editor at One America, and he's a young adult, and he's made his way in the world. That, to me, is the greatest accomplishment. We have stories like that. And so keep that in mind when AB 5, Assembly Bill 5, floats down your transom. Please, stories like that will be endangered. I don't mean to get political, but if AB 5 were law back then, Travis wouldn't have gotten a shot. And we have 50 camera people. We send out tons of, we were at 35 games every Friday night. Well, and there are all these people who have a second job, third job. Tim is a stringer by trade. And please keep that in mind when you go into the voter's box. Because we're in the business of giving people it's a real deal broadcast education, and we pay them to do it. It's like graduate school. So, I know, folks, it's 4 o'clock. I've been up a long time. I don't mean to preach to you. Any other questions? Can I go home and go to bed? Yep.
One thing I decided I want to do is morning show. Now, look, we love you. You're great. But thank you.
I felt like I was living in Groundhog Day. Here's what it was. I was writing a lead for a baseball all-star game. And I was thinking, okay, how did I write this a year ago? And I'd already written the first 2 paragraphs of the story. And I pulled up the 2018 edition. And unbeknownst to me, I wrote the exact same lead-in for. So then I went to 2017. I wrote the exact word for word. I was on a loop. Everything was the same. And listen, this is one opportunity I'm going to get. Carlos, you all know, graduated. He retired. And I thought, they offered it to me, and I thought, what the hell? Why not try it? And, I'm learning. It's a hard thing to do. Because, first of all, no one will accept you in a role outside of one they've watched you for 22 years. And so that's a big hurdle to overcome. Plus, there's a lot of serious names and foreign names and leaders of countries and countries that I didn't know how to pronounce. And when you see me go jerk, that terrorist, he got killed. Yeah. The fun stuff, I can do that because that's just personality. But the hardcore news, but God bless Lauren Finney, because that, as beautiful as she is, she's even a kinder person. She watches up. She's always kicking me under the table, saying, "Look ahead because you got a tough name coming up," and then she'll whisper in my ear how to pronounce it. And I mean, like a mother hen. She's because we're always eating because you never get to have breakfast. So I'll have a protein bar around my food, and she's like, God bless her, because if not for her, I would have already been ousted. Am I done? Make sure.